Hey everyone, my name is Alexandra and I'm a watercolor artist. I recently got a comment on one of my videos asking how to deal with white when painting with watercolor. This is such a common question because it is a very intimidating thing, very different than painting with acrylics or anything like that. So to show you guys how to incorporate white into your paintings, today we are going to paint some clouds together. Let's get started. For supplies today, you guys will need a napkin for drying your paintbrushes on. I have 2 cups of water, one for clean, one for dirty water. I'm using Philosophy and Co's Woodlands palette, as well as a mix of some Winsor and Newton colors. Main color that you'll need is blue or a few different types of blue. I have 3 different paintbrushes right now. I have Opus Allegro's numbers 4, 10, and their 1/2 inch brush. And lastly, I'm using 140 pound cold press watercolor paper because for this painting we are doing a full wash. I've taped my paper down. All right, so last night I taped my paper down and I wet it just to stretch it before painting because we're gonna be doing a wash. But I just went ahead right now and added water and I'm just gonna soak it fully. For this painting specifically, we're using a lot of the wet on wet technique. So just want to make sure that my paper is nice and ready to go. Now, as I spread that out, I just want to talk to you guys about painting with white and what I typically do. So people often ask if I use white paint in my paintings. I very, very, very rarely use white paint. And if I do, sometimes I'll use acrylic or some gouache. But typically what I try to do instead is really plan out my painting well so that I know where the white spaces are going to be and I leave them blank so that the paper is showing through. So we're gonna do that with this painting. I put a little too much water on there, so I'm just gonna dry some of it off. Just to get it ready. So I have fully saturated my paper. It's taped down, so it should dry flat. And we're gonna go in and paint some clouds. So I'm gonna start by mixing one of my blue colors here. And I'm just gonna get it ready on my palette. Right now, because for this painting we're using a wet on wet technique, I want to be very intentional with where I'm putting my paintbrush and where I'm putting the color. So I'm going to start just by dotting in the color, and I'm sort of imitating a bit of a cloud shape. We'll add some more definition in a little bit here, but what I want to do is be, again, really intentional. And with clouds, you can kind of have fun with them because they can be sort of whatever shape you want them to. But we're just gonna add in some blue paint. And I'm sort of giving it that bumpy look, but again, because the paper is really wet, right now everything's just gonna bleed really nicely. So you can see that I'm being super intentional with making sure to leave some white space. Okay, so now that I've done that first layer, it sort of kind of already looks like clouds, but we want to add in more to it. So I'm going to go in with my smaller paintbrush and I'm going to get a bit of a brighter blue this time. I'm just going to start from my corner, the top left corner here. And I'm just adding that color in and really making the clouds stand out. So clouds are one of the easiest ways to to practice this with, just because you can see very clearly and very quickly that we're not painting with white for the clouds. We're using the color instead to make the white stand out. So I can even go in to some of the places that I painted blue with my napkin, and I can just try to add some more texture to that by cleaning off some of the paint. So again, as my paper dries a little bit and becomes less wet, I can go in and I can be more specific with my lines and try to really make those shapes stand out. So because we're using a wet on wet technique here, one of the other key things is to work relatively quickly while your paper is still damp. So now I want to go sort of in to the center of where my cloud is painted, and I just want to add some shading. So I'm mixing sort of a gray with a bit of a blue, just to get the color that I want here. And we're just going to add some shapes and definition within the cloud. So again, really focusing on leaving a lot of the white color showing through. Now we're just going to continue to go in and add some more definition along the edges. And I like to go in with my napkin just because it gives it more of that textured edge. This is also a really fun way to practice if you either look up a photo or take a photo of clouds, and you can just practice your painting by trying to get sort of the similar shape, the similar shading as you see in whatever photo you're looking in. Now, I sort of want to make it look like I have two different clouds that are kind of layering over each other here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this blue-gray color again, and I'm going to bring the color in from the edge here. And where I've already painted with this sort of shaded color, I'm going to go even darker there. And just try to get the separation between the two. And you'll notice because my paper is still wet, it does a really nice job of the colors just bleeding together. I kind of want to take away some of the blue that's in the corner here. So I could even wet my napkin a tiny bit. And then with the dry side, I'm going to dab it into my painting and just take away some more of that color. Now this top left corner here has already dried, but I want to add a little bit more depth into it. So I added a bit of blue, and now I can go in with my clean wet brush and just spread that color out. So you can already see that this is starting to look so much more like a sky. So we're just gonna keep working at it and keep adding those details. So now I'm starting to try to get a little bit more definition along the edge of my clouds, but I'm still making sure to give it that nice natural look. I still want the edges to be a little more on the soft side. Okay, so now that I have sort of really good base for my clouds laid out, I'm gonna go in and add some more of that detail within each cloud. So I'm using a light sort of watered down color, and I'm just adding shading to make it look a lot more full. And again, the same idea, same technique you could use if you're painting more like wispy clouds or different things, but the whole idea of practicing this is just that practice of knowing where to leave space empty of where your white's gonna be, and not overworking your painting. So to be really intentional with where you're putting your colors and where you're leaving your painting white. So again, I'm just really loosely painting in these shapes, and I'm looking at honestly a bunch of photos of clouds and just kind of seeing where they have shading, but this is also sometimes easier if you find a specific photo that you like and just try to focus on where you see the white standing out and where you see the shadows coming in. Now, some examples of when I might use things like white paint or masking fluid in my paintings is if I have a lot of really fine details with white and it's really hard to paint around stuff. In those cases, I will use things like white paint, which you guys might have seen in different videos. I believe I did a Christmas tutorial that had a starry sky in it. For stuff like that, it's often easier to just add in the white after. For things like stars or snow or stuff like that. When I'm doing things like custom portraits, if I'm painting a wedding dress that has a lot of lace details, I'll often use masking fluid in that. If you guys are curious about masking fluid, how to use it, when to use it, leave a comment below and I'd love to do a tutorial on that and let you guys know more. But as I said, in general, my approach is to just really plan out my paintings and focus on the composition and know where and when and how I want to include white. All right, so I'm just adding a little bit more depth into the sky here, and then we will be just about done and ready to let it dry. So now I'm just gonna take away some of that. Okay, so this is a super quick, super simple version of clouds. Depending on what I was painting for, I might spend a little bit more time focusing yeah, focusing on each cloud and the details specifically within it. But again, such a good way to practice painting with white. If you guys have any more questions, please leave a comment below and let me know. I'd love to answer. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel. We'll see you next time.